Hello, friends. Welcome to Science Talk. I am your host, Jim Massa. I want to bring with you this little interesting study that is examining what's happening to what we traditionally call the four seasons of the year. And basically, what the researchers have concluded is that by the end of this century, 2100, summers could last nearly half the year. Okay, so what's going on? The lengthening of the Northern Hemisphere's summer has already begun, according to a new study in the journal Geophysical Research Letters. And usually, how many times you've heard, oh, today is, spring equinox, it's the start of spring, it's the summer solstice, start of summer, and so on and so forth. Well, that's kind of arbitrary, and it's really not meaningful. So a group of Chinese scientists basically looked at this in another manner. They defined summer's commencement as the onset of temperatures in the hottest 25% of the year, winter by the coldest 25% of the year. So when they looked at the temperature data to see where the situation is at, what is likely to happen as the global average temperatures continue to rise, what they found was that, for example, in 1952, summer was basically 78 days long. By 2011, this had stretched to 95 days in the Northern Hemisphere. Winter contracted from 76 to 73 days in duration, same time period. Spring from 124 to 115. Autumn from 87 to 82 days. If this trend continues, if humans continue to burn fossil fuels, then by 2100, spring and autumn, the length of those two seasons will continue to diminish. Winter will be over in just a couple of months, and then the rest of the year will be summer, and that'll be nearly half the year. And you take half the year, that's about 180 days. So the scientists write the changing seasonal clock signifies disturbed agricultural seasons and rhythm of species activities, more frequent heat waves, storms, wildfires, which amounts to increased risk to humanity. Findings basically doesn't really surprise farmers or phenologists. Now, phenologists are scientists who study when things happen in nature, the timing of the natural order. When do the flowers bud? When do insects start pollinating? When do birds return from winter for the springtime? That kind of thing. In fact, I did quite some time ago a video about Henry David Thoreau being a first phenologist, as when he spent his time at Walden, he was also noting such things, the timing of the leaves changing, the time of spring buds, insects, etc., etc. So when you look at this, these guys, and of course, they're looking at all the things I just mentioned, when they happen, the timing of it. As I said, the insects, migrating birds, all of them affected by the increasingly early arrival of spring. Now, this is important because let's say some species don't have it quite timed right. Let's say because things are warmer, aquatic insect larvae hatch out sooner than when, say, the birds arrive to have their chicks, and then they go to catch these aquatic insects, and they're not there because the timing was messed up. They missed it. And this is a problem. We're actually seeing this here. So the earlier timing can throw off the timing of other species that depend on the initial startup, to put it in those terms. So some would say, well, shorter winter, isn't that a good thing? All that shoveling and stuff like that. Well, it doesn't make the natural world more fecund, fecund is another way of saying how many offsprings, how many eggs are produced. For example, we talk about fecundity of a fish. How many eggs will a gravid female produce? So, a shorter winter will not make any organisms more fecund productive. Many crops and a very large number of deciduous trees rely for health and strength on a reliable period of winter chill. And if the winter is shorter, it will not be as chilly, and it will obviously be a warmer one that could have imposed some problems. Conversely, a long hot summer is probably not going to be welcome. Okay? It will be more intense, more enduring, more extensive heat waves. These conditions will pose threats to harvest, to human health. For example, if you cannot adequately perspire, then you end up in a situation with hyperthermia, where you overheat. And this could affect at least a billion or more people. Researchers warn that longer, hotter summers will affect the capacity to produce energy while at the same time accelerating demand for electricity to power air conditioning systems. And there, if we haven't switched over to other forms of energy, you're going to be burning more fossil fuel. You're only going to be accelerating, exponentiating the situation. It's going to get worse and worse. Higher temperatures have been linked to high crime rates in some parts of the U.S., researchers warn. Earlier and colder spring seasons can mean more what they say, false springs, followed by severe frost of the kind that in 2012 in Michigan basically resulted in fruit damage, where the farmers in that state, growers, lost $500,000 in revenue from the crop failures and losses. And here's another thing, and something else to think about. If it gets really hotter, some trees get stressed out because and then they don't photosynthesize. They start respiring. They start drawing down not CO2 from the atmosphere, but oxygen. And remember, plants like organisms have preferred temperature ranges. If it gets too hot, they wither. Excessive transpiration will cause excessive fluid loss from the plant. They wither and die. And this other development or possibility is probably a better way to put it is that with the warmer and longer summer, virus bearing mosquitoes will have a wider range, longer breeding seasons, and this can result in sudden outbreaks of disease in regions that didn't have to worry about whatever diseases those insects may be carrying. And if you're an unfortunate person who suffers from pollen allergies, you're going to be sneezing a lot more for most of the year. So basically, the scientists conclude that as the global warming intensifies, the four seasons of a year no longer have equal months. Their onsets are irregular. This change of seasonal lengths can trigger a chain of reactions, and policy making for agricultural management, healthcare, disaster prevention will require adjustment. So here's another uh, implication of what's happening with a warming planet, and probably some of you may have noticed, like, well, things seem to be happening a little earlier, a little later in the year. This is what's going on. So, for the northern hemisphere, summer's going to be a lot longer with more severe uh, temperature, heat waves, and so forth. But the increased risk of disease carrying organisms, vectors we call them, that can spread diseases far and wide. And that, of course, has major implications. So, overall, this whole thing has major implications, and time will tell. Now, one thing in this paper, they did not really give temperature increase levels. No, they did not say that we hypothesize that if temperatures were increased by 3C, the summer will lengthen by this number of days. They did not state that. Um, that Granted, that's more of a projection kind of thing, and perhaps the modeling wasn't adequate enough to address that directly. But it would be interesting to see them perhaps further refine their research to include such projections. 3C, summer increases by this many days, 4C, this many days, and so forth. Just something I noticed about the paper. So there you have it. Until next time. Hello, folks. This is Jim here with Science Talk, asking you to please subscribe to my channel and to inform others of my channel and of the work that I do. Please share to social media platforms that you use. Also, as a reminder, don't forget to click the bell so that you know when I load up more videos. Finally, I ask that you support the work that I do by becoming a patron at patreon.com. Details in the description box below. Thank you for your support.